Welcome to the Akousunesis method. Today we're going to learn about pattern stacking, lesson 27. So straight from my website again, Akousunesis lessons right down below, lesson 27. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive, but not too complicated. I'm going to try to explain this as the best I can. We're going to learn about pattern definitions. Now, I know it looks a little complicated at first, but it's not that complicated, and I'll go through each one of these items here and explain it. And I'll explain what we use these for. Right? We'll use these for in our compositions and our improvisations. And although you're looking at it and going, we're not going to be playing mathematics when we're, thinking mathematics when we're playing. But once you understand what this actually means, it's actually quite a visual thing. And we rely a lot on visualization and to work with our theoretical knowledge. And this is actually a tool to help you discover new ways to improvise and how to lead on, say, from one chord, find its context within a modal structure and within a key, and how to move on to, say, other keys and other modes within keys. So these are quite powerful. So I'm going to describe this, and let's go. Right, so it's going to might be a bit tricky. We'll see how we go. Let me know, please. Get some feedback would be great. So I know am I making it too simple? Is it too simple? Is it difficult? So I need to get some feedback here. But anyway, let's go. So what's a pattern? Well, generally a pattern is a melody, right? And it's a sequence of notes. Now, we don't try to keep patterns too long and too complicated because we rather break things down in little chunks. And you can learn little chunks quite easily, and you can learn them on their own also. And then you can build up this database of patterns in your head where you can apply to different melodies. And with the Akousunesis method, we don't go over an octave when we're working on patterns, right? So we'll have a root of a pattern, right? And we won't go past the high note of the pattern. If we want patterns to go above an octave, well, we'll just create a second pattern and then join them together. Right? So we try to keep things as simple and as small as possible, right? Little chunks. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's this same idea. So we're going to continue on from the previous lesson, and we're going to just pick a very simple pattern, and we all know this pattern because it's just a chord. So the pattern itself, okay, is just going to be a minor third and a major third. And what we're going to do is we're going to stack these on top of each other and see where they take us on the keyboard. We did that in the last lesson, right? Okay. In the last lesson, we'll just very quickly just go back to that, just a very quick revision because it was just the previous lesson, right? So we just looked at stacked thirds, right? And we stacked major thirds and we stacked minor thirds. And it was all a bit like an experiment to see what would happen, right? And then we stacked alternating major and minor thirds, okay? So that's what we did last lesson. So in this lesson, we're going to stack, our pattern's going to be a minor, minor, and a major. So let's just go back to our lesson, 27. So if we have a look here, we'll start straight from the diagram, and we'll start on C as our root of our pattern. Now the root can start on any note, of course, but we always like to start on C because C is quite easy to visualize, especially all the modes of a key. Because once you know the Ionian mode of any key, right, if you want to learn any mode, it's a visualization thing. You're looking down, right? You know it's the white notes, right? So if I want to play the Aeolian, well, I don't have to focus on the melodic interval series of Aeolian. I don't need to know that. Right? So root note, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. I don't have to remember that. All I have to remember is how to play my major scale. Right? And then when I'm looking down to play, say, an Aeolian, I'm just focusing on the white notes. Right? And it doesn't matter what mode you're playing. If I'm playing from F to F, right, the Lydian, I'm just focusing on the white notes. I'm not thinking about a Lydian. I can hear the Lydian. Especially if you're playing, you get that F major there going, and then you start playing a melody. And what really defines that Lydian mode, right, is that note there. Because if that was an Ionian, that would be a flat, right? So that gives it a lot of character. That what's that note? Well, that's a fourth, right? Where's your fifth? There's your fifth. No, it's not a fourth. There's your fourth. That's a minor fifth, right? Because there's your fifth, right? There's your fourth. Now, that's very similar. If I avoid that note, right? Let's avoid that note, and I'll just play. That's exactly the same mode, a pattern. So just because you're starting on F, right, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in the key of F, right? And just because you're starting on C doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in the key of C. It all depends on the modal context. Where does C exist? In which keys does C exist? You'll find it exists in other keys, right? And we'll go through that more. I've got a lot of information that in my book, but we'll go through that more as time goes on. So I'm trying not to make these too difficult, because they can get very complex, and it takes a bit of thinking to think about this. So I'm trying to do my best to explain this in the easiest possible way I can. And it's a complicated topic, but at the end of the day, we just want to learn to play, right? And we want to learn to listen our ears. So all this theory just becomes tools to help us become more creative on the piano, right? So we don't harp on it and focus on the theory, right? It becomes a tool. It should always be just a tool to help us create. Right? And that's what the Akousunesis method is focused on. Just enough theory, right? Even though it's complicated, there is complicated theory, but it's just enough to help you become more creative on the piano, right? All right, so let's get back to the lesson. So I'm giving you a bit of context, but let's get back to this lesson. All right, so we have a 4-note pattern, and here it is, okay? So the melodic series, right? So a melodic series is, it's a melody, right? So you're going from one note to the next note to the next note. So in this one, we have a minor, and a major up here, right? That's our melodic pattern. So it's referenced from the previous note, right? So the interval is referenced from the previous note you played, right? Now, we don't want to learn, our ear hears, when we're listening for a melody, that's what our ear hears. It hears relative movement of pitch going up and down. And that's when we listen to play a melody and we want to play it by ear, we're listening for that relative pitch movement. And that's what we're focusing on. But when we want to relate it to theory on the piano, we do a translation, which is relative movement as well, but we call that harmonic interval series. So that same melody, right, which was a minor third, a major third, and back into a minor third, back to the root, right? That's very difficult to remember. You can't remember. It's like going down the street, giving directions and saying, go down this road, turn left, go straight, turn right, go left. And, it's very difficult to remember that. But when you give a reference, say, go to the post office and take the left, then you'll see a shoe store, and then it's on the road on the right. You're adding more memory association, right, of a building, right? So with harmonic interval series, the memory association we're giving extra is a chord, right? Is a root note. So all these intervals, -3, -5, and -7, are all reference to that one root note, right? And it could be anywhere on the piano, that note. Doesn't have to start on C, right? But in this example, it does, right? So that minor third is reference to the 1. The minor 5 is reference to the 1. The -7, right, is reference to the 1. Okay? So, and that's called a harmonic interval series. And that's what we're going to be learning and describing our melodies by, harmonic. Because we don't need to put any effort into this. You'll find that our ear hears it, our fingers will magically move into that, and we won't even have to think about our fingers moving to the just a right amount to get the melody right. Right? So then all these harmonic series and all the intervals just become extra memory associations that we can make to help us remember songs. It's all about remembering how to play, being more creative, understanding what you're doing on the piano. All right, so we have a pattern, and this is our first pattern. Right? This pattern itself, right, if you look at it, it's the first 3 notes is a diminished chord with a -7th, right? So it's a diminished, and if it's a diminished on C, right, we call that a half diminished chord. Now, remember our when we were looking at the modes in the key of C, right? When we were playing that from B to B, we're playing the Locrian mode, right? This is the same mode, right? Because let's have a look here. Let's just flatten every single note. Can you see we're on B? But we're not playing every note. This is a pattern, right? We're only playing the 1, the -3, the -5, and the -7. We've removed the -2nd. That's gone. We've removed, what's that? That's the, if we do that, that's the -5, right? There's a 5th rule. -5. 5. Sorry, 5 there, that's a 4. So it's not easy, is it? There's 5, that's a 4. So we remove the 4 and we remove the -2. We're playing 1, -3, -5, -7. But we're starting on B here. So this pattern here is exactly the same as this. We've just shifted it to the C, and there our notes are up there. Just slid them all up by a semitone. Right. So that's a Locrian pattern, right? It's a Locrian. Now, how can we describe that? Well, we're going to have a look. We're going to go straight to here. And now I'm going to explain this step by step, and it's really not that difficult. The first thing you're going to focus on, you're going to just get rid of all this noise here for a start, right? Forget all that. Just focus in on this, right? A Locrian. Now, you know what a Locrian is, okay? You know what a Locrian, because in the key of C, remember, we play from B to B. That's the Locrian mode, right? B to B. What's the chord associated with that mode? Right? So this is a diatonic chord that we associate with a Locrian. It starts on B, and it's got every note 3, 5, and 7. So we use these chords as like foundations to build on. We build on. We can alter the chord. We can bring it down. We can even come out of key. But we have a foundation. And all the modes are something that if you learn all your scales one by one, you're automatically going to know all your modes. And I'll show you why. It's because how you visualize. Now, you don't have to learn them as something different, right? As if you know your scale, let's go on G. Let's start on G. Let's go around the circle fifths. I'm not going to go all the way. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. Let's start on G, right? And we know G has got F sharp, right? So when I'm playing the Ionian, right, I'm noting that I'm playing all the white notes except F, where I play F sharp. Now, if I have that in my focus, right, doesn't matter which note I start on. If I start, say, on C, and I just know it's all the white notes, and I know when I get to F, I just sharpen it, right? Not flat, not go that way, or we haven't come that way, we haven't flattened it to F sharp or G flat. We've sharpened it, so we don't play F, we play F sharp. So if I play on C and stop on C and just focus on the note that I had to change, then you just have to work out what are the best fingers. To work out what are the best fingers, what I've supplied on the website, which is really good ear training. So if you go to the ear training menu, I won't stay here for long. On the ear training menu, I'm going to go through a video describing what I've added to my website. So I might make that smaller because that's sort of coming down there. So basically, all these are all the modes by ear, listening for them, trying to work them out on the piano, and then the solutions or finger placement exercises. Okay, so these can be very helpful you can go through this. This is great ear training to get your ear used to the modes. But let's get back to our lesson as we just jump out of it. All right, so we focused in on our Locrian. So we know the Locrian in every key. So for instance, the key of A. You know your A major scale, right? You know it has C sharp. You know it has F and G sharp. Okay. So what's the Locrian? Starts on it's always a semitone down from the root, right? So it's going to start on the F sharp. So if I focus in on the notes I need to press and know where to end right, which are just ending there, I can play the Locrian. Easy. I don't have to think about what's the melodic interval series of a Locrian, what's the harmonic interval series of the Locrian. It's a 1, -2. You know, those things you can learn, right? When you're playing a song, you want to learn to read intervals, that's fine. But you don't need to remember the intervals to know how to play the Locrian of anything or how to play any mode. You just need to learn your scales. Learn your scales, learn everyone. So this is founding information important. Right? Knowing all the notes of the keyboard, being able to visualize them in your head, knowing all your keys, being able to close your eyes and visualize them. These aren't hard things to do. It takes a little bit of time just to remember it. It's a memory thing, if anything. It's just pure memory. Even with no much theoretical knowledge, you've got to put that in your memory because it's all going to come out when you need it. And it's going to be very, very helpful, and especially when you're improvising. Okay, so the good beauty about these finger placement exercises is we're now capable to describe, we want to describe a pattern. Now, a pattern can be described in harmonic intervals, right? That's very common to describe for patterns. And again, if we go to my website, just go to Fast Tips. If you go into Scales, I have, at the end of the scales, I have some popular scales. And I'll keep on adding to this. These are the ones in my book. But these are the harmonic interval series. Now, it's very difficult to remember these, right? To remember 1, 2, -3, 4, 5, right? And you want to remember it. If you want to remember it, and it's useful when you want to improvise and you're working out a melody, right? If you've got a better way to remember a scale, if there's a better way, you can concentrate on now visualizing it, right? Rather than trying to work it out. So we want the easiest way to remember something. So for example, a Hungarian gypsy, for instance, is Aeolian sharp 4. Well, if we don't focus in on the Aeolian, on the operations, we call these operations, and just on the Aeolian, we know what an Aeolian is, right? An Aeolian is, in the key of C, is just playing from A to A, right? So what would be a Hungarian gypsy? Well, if we know the Aeolian, we just have to know what we change from what we already know. So rather remembering everything new, right? All these new, we can learn all these scales, but we can cut the amount of time it takes to learn things down by just knowing 7 modes and how to play them in all keys. Now, all the modes are the same. It's a visual thing, right? So, Aeolian, Hungarian gypsy. All I do is take that minor third, right? Sorry, where are we? Hungarian. Was I doing the Hungarian gypsy? Yeah. We're sharpening the 4th, right? So there's the 4th. We just sharpen it. So we no longer play that. We sharpen it, and we play the E, right? Because that's the E being the 5th, and you'll see it in the formula there. We're playing the 5th, right? So there's no 4th. It should be. I don't put sharp 4 here, right? I put -5, and I do that on purpose because you're already in the key of C. Okay, so we want to show you that you don't have to, like a 4th, in the key of C, that would be a 4th, right? So it's not a good example here of what I'm trying to explain, but we don't want to think of extra notes if we're already in the key of C. So anyway, sharp 4 is up there. So here we go. So it's that change there. We're playing the E2. And that's a nice slide. That could be a nice slide. Or when you go from a black to a white, it's a nice slide. Right, so that's quite a nice sound, right? That's the Hungarian gypsy. But it's just an Aeolian sharp 4. Now, I could pick any Aeolian. Say let's in G flat, right? There's G flat. And where's the Aeolian? There's a 5, there's a 6, right? So if I'm going to play from E and I'm just looking at the notes of G flat and playing from E flat to E flat, that's the Aeolian, right? Right? So now the Aeolian Hungarian gypsy would take the 4th, there's the 4th, and we're just going to sharpen it. Is the same as this in a different key. So it's the same pattern, exactly the same in different key. So the beauty of these is we can simplify remembering a whole lot of harmonic intervals, numbers, right? A formula, harmonic formula, by just knowing what we already know, which will be a mode, and you'll know all your modes because you're going to practice them, and what you did to change it. And we want to keep these, we call these operations, and you can do 4 things. You can flatten, you can sharpen, and you can remove. An R is a remove, an interval, and an A is an add, an extra interval. So you can do 4 operations. And you want to keep these as minimum as possible. And you can take this formula, and this is only one way. You can describe this formula in 7 different ways, all of the modes. This is a Locrian R4, Aeolian, let's stick to the easy one. So this is an Aeolian sharp 4. But you can describe it as an Ionian, as a Dorian, but it will have more operations. So we want to describe it in the mode that has the least operations. In other words, this formula is very close looking to the Aeolian mode natural formula, right? But it's just got one alteration, and it's that -5. There's no 4, okay? Because the Aeolian has a natural fourth in it. Right. So let's get back now to the course. So this can be a bit longer lesson, I don't care, it's gone 25 minutes. Back to this. So we haven't even hit the rising stack yet. So we call this this whole thing is called a modal, this is a modal scale. We'll call this a pure modal scale because it's key independent, just this bit here. So we have the mode, right, and the operations we did to change it. Now, when you see this, it means play the whole mode. So you're playing the Locrian, right? So we'll play it in B. It doesn't matter where we're going to start. This is telling you what we're going to start on, right? But we're just looking at this right this second. So we'll start on B, right? Because we know the Locrian in B. If you don't know your other keys, you know the B Locrian because you know the key of C, right? So now let's have a look. We're going to remove -2 right there. There's a -2, we're not playing it. There's the 4, right? There's a 5, there's a 4, tone down. 4, we're not going to play that either. So we're going to play the 1, we're going to play the 3, we're going to play the 5. And there's a 5, there's a +5. We're going to remove the +5. So all that's left is the -7. So we're playing this. That's our pattern, right? Okay. So this is saying we're going to play it up just in order, right? But this is describing a pattern. It's showing you. It can also elaborate to show you the fingers, but I haven't shown you this here because it's almost like an introduction to these things, right? So but what this is showing you, we're just rising up. That's all. It's just a sequence. Now, it's not necessarily how we're going to be playing it in a song or something. We're defining the notes of how to play it, right? Not the notes of what we're going to be using in the melody, right? But we can play it any way we want, right? So it's just defining these notes. This is an upper limit. It means we're only going to the -7. In other words, we're not going to be going to the 1. Now, you can have an upper limit of any of the 12 intervals. If the upper limit was 5, it means I only do this. Now, if I only did that and played to the 5, because this number here was a 5, then you wouldn't need this. You'd just have that. Sort of following? I hope so. Okay. This here is our root. Now, together with the root, ignoring the dim for now, because this is really optional. It's not that important, and it's not going to describe the chord or anything. We'll just leave that for now. So the C is the root of the exercise. So now you've placed it in a key. As soon as you say C Locrian, you know now what's the key of C Locrian. Can you tell me the key? Well, remember, if we look at the key of C, for instance, where's the Locrian start on the note B? To find the key of any Locrian, it's just a semitone up, and there's the C, key of C. So any note, if I go A flat Locrian, that's the key of A. If I E flat Locrian, that's the key of E. Just go up a semitone. If I go E flat Locrian, D flat, sorry, key of D. So if I'm saying C, key of D flat. Right? What's a key of D flat? Okay, key of D flat. And then it says remove the -2. Oh, it's the Locrian is... Oh, the Locrian is starting on... Remember, remove the -2. We're playing the Locrian. I just played the key of D flat, right? But the Locrian's starting on the C. and we stop there. Or on this pattern we don't, we actually stop here. Minor 7. There's the root of the pattern, C, minor 7. Following? Please write comments. See if you're not following too much information. You can always go back and go back. And you probably the more you start to get into the Akousunesis method, the more this will make sense to you. Right? If you're fresh here, this might be a bit challenging. It's a difficult one if you're fresh, but you'll lead up to this. It's a course. All right, so we're starting on C. And, I'm trying to always improve my ability to teach this as well. So I'm always focusing on how to make the lessons better. So it's still early days. It's only 3 months that I've had the website, everything up. So, and it's all growing nicely, slow but steady. And I've got some book sales, which is good, and that's the main thing because that's how I make a living. So everything is all synced together. Everything is in my book. Any new information in the book will make its way to the website, although the book will always have a bit more info than the website. Right? We'll delve a bit deeper in the book. Right? And the book's not that expensive. It's only 25 Australian dollars. So... and that will be a foundation. And it's a living document too, so it always gets revised. I added more stuff and I send it out every month. I've actually got to make now, within these few days, a book revision video. All right, so we're on C and we're on a Locrian. So far we pretty much have covered all this, right, what it means. Now on the left here, P just means pattern. I had a pi symbol as well, you could put, but I'm putting a capital P because it's easy to type. You don't have to look up images or anything. Right hand, so you can create patterns for your right hand or left hand. So that could be right hand or left hand. That could be P, and it might have a number next to it. P2, P1, I won't put it there, but P1, P2, P3. You can create a whole lot of patterns. This here, because I don't want to drag images up as well, this is the terminology now that I use, as well as a loop terminology I've got as well, for a rising stack. Right, so what does a rising stack mean? Well, it just means we have a definition, right? We have a modal pattern definition. We can now apply this anywhere on any note, right? We want to apply it. We can remember we said we've got a pattern. We can start on any note, right? But we don't want to just randomly choose notes, right? Because it's going to, I mean, you could, you could. There's nothing stopping you. There's no fixed rule. But if we do it in a ordered fashion, in some fashion, we can produce some nice sounds that flow nicely and join nicely together. So the number in here is an interval. It can be any of the 12 intervals. Right? That's where we are going to repeat the pattern. So for instance, with this one, we started on C. So what's a minus 7 from C? There's C, there's a minus 7. So the first pattern is going to be, then the next pattern, we're going to be here. Minor, 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 right? Major. Now I've drawn this up to make it a bit visual, a bit more visual for you. And I've only got it going, now you can cycle this 12 times because you can cover every single note, right? But you only cycle it the amount of times you want to have in your song. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to find a chord sequence, right? A bunch of chords and a melody. Now, you don't have to fix yourself to this melody, but it's a constraint, right? It's a constraint, and constraints help you focus in and give you a skeleton of a pattern that you can now come back to, you can move away from and come back to, so you can create these skeleton patterns. And these are very useful when you're writing songs, and they become anchor patterns. And I've going to do some lessons on anchor patterns, anchor notes. They're used all the time in pop music, and pop songs have made themselves millions and millions of dollars from these ideas. Unknowingly, they didn't know what they were doing. Guaranteed, a lot of pop songs that became popular, and even classical songs too. I've analysed all this because I've played a lot of music, and I've got this brain that sort of can see patterns, and I've analysed this, and I've put it in my book, and I'm trying to present it in a way that we can reuse this information. We can use it. So if you have a little pattern in a song, for instance, and you come back and visit it, you remember it. Your brain remembers it and becomes fond of it. Songs do this a fair bit. There has been a lot spoken about this on YouTube, on videos, and people, why do certain songs become popular, why others don't. Well, there's a lot of reasons. There's heaps of reasons. But one of them is familiar. I can't even say that word. I hate that word. But you know the word I'm being familiar with. Being familiar with a certain sound that's pleasing and then revisiting it. So these can help you with that. So, well, let's go back to, I know this video is long, but I don't care. If you're really want to learn piano, you're gonna hang on. There's a lot to absorb, I know, but you can always rewatch these videos, and I will put chapters in, I think, with this one, to get to certain bits. All right, so this probably might require more chapters. So let's have a look. So we're going to start on C, and we're going to apply that pattern. We know the pattern now, right? So it's right? When we're working it like this, we can think of it as a minor, minor, major. If that's helpful, that's not bad. Think of it as minor third. -3, -5, -7. It's there easy, fine. So we're here, right? -3. Where's the 5? There's a -5, right? So we're here. I should do this with my left hand because then I got my mouse free to actually show it, right? 1 -3, -3. -5, sorry, there's a 5, -5, -7. Now, we're going to reapply that. So what ends up happening is we break this out we can break it out into 12 pattern finger placement exercises. We can turn this into finger placement exercises. I haven't shown this here. I should show it. I should have shown it here. But I didn't want to put too much information in. But I come back with these courses on the website and add more information. So even though the video is complete, the learning doesn't stop with these lessons because I'm always refining it, and I might even remake some of these lessons again, in the future. I don't know. If I think that I did a bad job on the early ones, I might redo some of these earlier ones. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, so the first one is we've got to here, right? Then we're going to reapply that on the -7th. So there's the -7th. So we're going to now start on B flat. B flat. We're in a new key now. So from here to here, we're in a new key. What key is it? Well, if that's a Locrian, it's the key of B. So now we're in a new key. Now, this is very useful information because if we're writing a song and we've got a pattern and we know we started in one key, and then now we have applied a rising stack and we've appeared now in a different key. We have a few options now. We can stay in that key, right, and start playing in that key. We've actually risen keys. You could do this 12 times with rising stacks. So you can make a piece that flows right through the whole circle of fifths, if you're really that keen. But usually you don't. You maybe get rise 3 or 4 times, different keys. And it's just to discover, it's just so we can discover chords. There'll be more on this. You'll re-see this. We'll be doing this in lessons and in song creation, and there'll be so much coming. But when the website grows more, and when I can get people to help me out to start to build more things. And the biggest focus with the Akousunesis method, my biggest focus is to how do I communicate this effectively to students? How do we teach this better? You know, I might not be the best teacher in the world. You know, I'm trying to be the best I can. And you know, and there's also this element of relating with people and relating with students. So you know, I might need other teachers to help out to teach. You know, they can relate better. Maybe, I don't know. But this is what we're learning too. So in the Akousunesis method, we're not only teaching you piano, we're teaching ourselves to learn to teach. And also we're learning new skills on the piano and also new ideas. I'm coming up with new ideas and innovations all the time. And I'm throwing them in my book. So I'm not letting them disappear out of my head anymore, because I used to have so many innovations that just flew off. I'm writing them down now. If I think it's worthwhile, I'll write down the idea, and then we'll see if I can work on it and improve it. You find you usually do. You write down an idea, and then you start working with it, and it gets better, and then you start working with it. You come up with improvements. So we've applied this on starting on B flat. Locrian B flat is in the key of B, right? Because the key of B, there's the Locrian, right? Starts on the B flat. So if I'm going to play Locrian in the key of now in the key of B, I just have to focus on the key of B, right? I know the key of B, and I'm going to start on B flat. There's the Locrian mode, right? And I know to get rid of the -2. Now, when you're trying to remember now, you want to start using this to make songs, right? Then what you do is you start focusing in on what you're creating, and then what comes in is a visual memory, that you're memorizing what you're doing, right? And then you're sort of visualizing what you're doing, and then you learning it like that. So you're not going to be using these to sort of remember a whole lot of complex formulas and a whole lot of complex. All this is used to get to a point of any song, to come up with a chord sequence and words and notes and all come together. But the formula will help you come up with interesting chord sequences, right? And things that will come out of key, and they'll come out of key in a nice, interesting way and a pleasing way. And I highlight it with all my song analyses. I highlight everything that comes out of key. Right? There's a lot to take in with the Akousunesis method. It's not easy, right, to get your head around some of the theories and the new approaches to how we create music. Right? It's not easy, but I'm trying to make it as easy as I possibly can. And it really isn't that hard once you start to go through the system from the beginning. Start from the beginning. These are structured. Very important to know all your notes. There's a reason you've got to memorize all your notes. There's a reason for it. Right? There's a reason why you have to start to understand how to create intervals. Right? And then we have 3. Then you must learn all your scales. You know? All right, you don't have to learn them religiously, like I'm going to learn every scale today. No, you can start on, say, G, start on C and then go to G, and then we can move on to create songs and apply a lot of the other lessons to that key. Then we can move on to another key, right? And then you start to create song in that key. Then go to another key, right? So you don't have to sit there and learn all your keys. But if you do that, it's going to benefit you greatly if you can just sit back and just know all your keys. Memorize them. And it's not that hard once you understand a few basic concepts. Right? All right, they're not basic at first. They're quite difficult to sort of get your head around, get over a hump of learning. But you'll find it'll all click in, and then things you thought you knew, some people say, oh, I understand what modes are. Modes is just playing from B to B. Oh, there's a mode. That's great. Yeah, sure, that's a mode. But there's so much higher levels of understanding. Well, how does that mode relate to chords? How does that mode relate to other modes, other key signatures? How can I use that within songs? So there's heaps of levels of understanding. And even I'm discovering new things all the time of, wow, I didn't know that one. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Sometimes I hear a scale for the first time. What's that one? Oh, I better write that down. So I've actually in my website, I've put that. I've shown you that before, right? So any new scales, if you have any scales that you can send to me, and they'll appear in the more tips section. Where is it? More resources, fast tips, scales. So I just put a big list of them here. So they're good starting points to go through. What I'll do, if you give me a scale, say in terms of the formula or in the name, I'll find the best way to describe it in a pure modal modal scale, and I'll put it on the list here. So I just found this yesterday actually. Phrygian dominant. I wasn't sure what a Phrygian dominant was. I knew what a Phrygian was, but what's a Phrygian? So I had a look. And, well, it's a Phrygian. Obviously, it's going to be a Phrygian something, isn't it? What's it going to do? Well, all it is, it's a Phrygian, and they just sharpen the minor third. Right? So there's your Phrygian mode. Always visualize, always start, here, good tip, always start on the key of C. Because you know that's the easiest one to visualize straight away. Until you get familiar with other keys, and then you can just transpose, right? So we're just playing Phrygian, key of C. White notes, hit E. And what are we doing? We're taking a minor third, sharpening it. So we're not playing that. We're playing that, right? But we're not playing that. Oh, I like that. And that's what's given it that unique character now. It's very Arabian, isn't it? Arabian Nights. Right? So these are great to help you come up with melodies. Right? At the end of the day, we always rely on our ear, right? All these things should just be there to give you extra hand to come up with different things. But you'll find if you start putting understanding to what you're doing, that you'll be more creative. You'll actually come up with more creative things, and you'll push yourself out of ruts, little ruts. You get yourself into musical ruts. You play the same way. Right? And everyone's guilty of it. I'm guilty of it myself. And I need to do more work with my left hand, for instance, and come up with more patterns. So I've created these exercises, not only for my students, also for myself, to come up with new ways. And I'm my first student. Right? So if I put my head in the student's head and I'll say, is this useful for me to learn? Is it effective? And then I'll put it in my book, and that's how I'll work it. I think we're done. I think we're done with lesson 27. It's been a long one, 49 minutes. I will come back here, and what I'll do with this is I'll break this up into finger placement exercises, describing this up here. And of course, if we keep on going, you're going to see what happens. Well, I'll go one more thing. I'm having so much fun here. So A flat will be the next starting point, right? So now we have A flat. So that's key of A. What's a Locrian in? What's A flat Locrian? Well, I just have to focus in on the key of A there. Play the key of A in Ionian, right? And then know that you're just going to stop on the G sharp, right? So, Locrian. That's the Locrian. But in this one, we're just playing, right? A diminished chord there, diminished, with a -7 there. Right? So, and you just keep on going. You can go 12 times, as we said. So what would be the next one? We take a -7, which will be here, right? G flat. And G flat, which is here, will be the next key. In the key of what? Will be G flat in the key of... it'll be in the key of G. So it's actually F sharp. We don't play the F because we're in the key of G. So what's the Locrian in the key of G? Well, we're into F sharp, right? We're starting F sharp, end on F sharp. There's your Locrian. Okay. So these are extremely powerful, these modal pattern definitions to coming up with chord sequences for improvisation and composition. Very powerful idea. And we break them down into finger placement exercises. And of course, finger placement exercises, you don't need to know any of this to do finger placement exercises. And I have an exercise section here. And we go and learn different, and I try to take them from compositions and songs, Flight the Bumblebee, the Boogie Woogie bass line, Pink Panther theme. And now what I've done with the finger placement exercises, I'm killing a few birds with one stone. You'll be able to listen first. So you listen first and you try to work it out on the piano. Right? And then the solution, you open it up here to reveal the solution, and that's a finger placement exercise. And then you move on to the next phrase, and there's the finger placement and so forth. So you can use this as ear training as well. So the best approach with these, before you learn your fingers, try to work it out first with your ear, and you'll develop fantastic ear training by doing that. Because to improve your ear to hear melodies, you need to hear the melodies and try to work them out. No theory is going to do that for you. The theory is only to create associations so you can remember songs, be creative, being able to improvise and do a lot more than just listen and I'll work it out. You can get very good at that. I've seen some fantastic people can listen to a song and just work it out. Right? But to put extra understanding to what you're doing, rather than just this is that chord and I'm playing this over this chord. So it's a bit more than just chord sequences. Right? There's other associations you can add to remember songs. But it always does come down to, at the end of the day, to your ear. All right, I'm done. That's it. Because it's a long lesson. Thanks for listening. If you're still here, you're just absolute legend. I will see you in the next lesson. I don't know what that's going to be, but I had it in my head the other day. I should have written it down. When you see a lesson and it's in development, I'll have say, or anything like even a song. So if you ever see this here, status, preparing lesson, it just means that this. Don't do it because it could be any state of development and these could be wrong and it could be in any state. It just means I just use the website because it's easy and to do. Preparing lesson now. I've almost got this one ready. I was going to put in some other stuff here. I was going to even put in a finger placement. I'm trying to think of creative ways to make them a bit more informative a song. Everything I do, I try to think of ways to put more value in each video. I'm trying to. So, but anyway. So, all right. Well, that's it. So, thank you, and see you later.